It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and I do appreciate that intro by Gerhard. And we are brought to you by the Red, White, and Blue. Today we're going to talk about some Red, White, and Blue. We're going to talk with George Truman Waters, and we're going to talk about World War II. Stay where you are. Get a pen. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues, and today we're talking with George Truman Waters. We're going to call him George. He's a World War II veteran. He's an ex-prisoner of war, and we've had him on here before, but it's been a while. Welcome back to the show, George. How long has it been?
Well, you might call me Truman if you wanted to.
Truman?
Everybody in this area knows me as Truman.
Well, see, I used to call you Truman. I thought you wanted me to call you George.
Well, maybe I had a different morning because my birthday's in June, and I'm a Gemini, so my personality changes from time to time.
What's that got to do? Okay, I'll go with that. But no, I thought it. I said, well, I can't call him Truman because I thought he wanted to be called, but that's just what I know. So.
That's all right.
Either way, I may just call you Mr. Waters.
No.
Yeah, there was folks that didn't get to see you when you was on here the other times. You're from locally here?
Yeah, over in Randolph County.
Randolph County.
Yeah,
okay.
Across the road from Marshall's Chapel Church.
All right, I know where that's at.
And the graveyard's right there across from my house, and that's my file cabinet. I go out there when I want to know when somebody died or when they were born. And it's about 5 generations
So
I was buried in that cemetery.
How about that? That's amazing. I would have never thought of it as a file cabinet. I did spend a lot of time yesterday, as a matter of fact, talking with somebody about getting their stuff in order because so many people don't do that, you know.
Yeah.
And I've done shows here about that because people look at death and stuff like that as, well, something that ain't going to ever happen, but it is going to happen to all of us.
And some people don't like to talk about it.
And you know what? The worst thing you can do is not be prepared to have it where your family knows what you want.
Right.
I got so many veterans out there that never talked to their wife or their father, didn't know if they wanted a burial or to where they want, what cemetery they want to be buried in, and nothing. Didn't tell anybody. They knew, but they didn't tell anybody. So then we end up putting it together. And that's a bad thing. But,
well, everybody knows me. All my kids know me well enough, I think. Whatever they decide, because I'm out of it, is the way I look at it.
Well, I on the other hand, I said, well, my daughter is going to have to take care of everything, and she don't know when I served in the Vietnam. She don't know my military date.
I see.
So I wrote my own obituary. It's in a file.
Well, that's not a bad idea.
Well, I didn't put the date on it.
Oh, no.
But seriously, she opens it up and it's there, everything but the date, because she won't know. She's going to be torn up, and she's not going to know when I served, where I served. I advise everybody to do that because you would want your folks to know that you gave you service to this country, and this is when you did it and who you served with. And another thing is names of nephews and nieces and stuff. Whoever you're going to put in there, a lot of them have married and their last names have changed. So I put all that in there because she wouldn't know them. And instead of just putting Cindy, Sandy, and Lisa, she can put their names on there, you know. So I did that, and I'd suggest that everybody out there think like that.
That's one reason I wrote my book.
Yeah.
Because I put everything in there about myself.
You sure did. I got it laying right over here. I had some thief get mine. No, I loaned mine to somebody, and I forgot who it was, and they have not chased me down. Maybe they'll watch the show and bring it back, and I have 2 of them. But I got me another one today. But that's awesome that people have something that they can go back and remember. Because we were here, we done something. You know, what'd you do while you was down there, George? Did you do anything while you was down on Earth? Well, you got your book,
Yeah, it's there in the book.
Yeah.
But you know, it's hard to put everything in there.
Oh my goodness.
And some things you don't remember.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna run out of time getting to that. So I want to go to the military part. You went
Okay.
in, when was you drafted, or did you
I was
draft?
drafted, I believe it was July the 13th, 1942.
Got you a letter.
I'd been married 6 months at that time. Me and my wife married the
If
week
we get
of
the
Pearl
control
Harbor.
room, we'll get the control room to bring that picture up. If they can do that, that show. I got a picture. This picture right there is right before
yeah.
you was shipped out, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the reason I knew that I had my wings on.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter took a little photograph that was taken back then, and she brought that over from Texas.
That was in 1943.
That's right. That picture was taken in
Mm-hmm.
1943, and I wouldn't have realized it if I hadn't have seen that I'd been through gunnery school and
Yeah.
was about to go overseas. That was the furlough
Yeah.
before I went overseas from Hampton Roads.
And you've been married 76 years?
76 years. It'd be 77 in December.
Lord have mercy.
Uh,
That's a lot of years. Well, when you went into service, you went in where? Where did you go to serve? Basic
I
training,
went
all
into Fort McClellan out
Okay.
here where I was sworn in, then from there to Camp McPherson,
Okay.
and then from there to Miami Beach, Florida.
Uh-oh.
Dead of summer.
Oh.
I mean, it was hot down there. A lot of people.
That was awful, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Look at them bathing suits and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
tantalizing.
You got the-
And then from there I went to Boston, Massachusetts to.
Well, that's a transition.
Yeah, it sure was. There's an old boy. We was on Pullman, and I wound up with a boy from Palisade Park, New Jersey.
Mhm.
And we were sitting together the whole trip, and you know, one of these troop trains don't move very fast. And we got to being real good friends because he knew the area up there better than I did. And we'd go get passes together. Somebody one day said, "You and old Wist, I didn't hear y'all say a half a dozen words to each other on that whole trip up there to Boston." And he said, "I couldn't understand a word he said. That's why we didn't talk."
Well, I skipped over something. But you're 97 now.
Yeah,
You're
that's
the-
right.
You were just a baby the last time you was on here. I think you was 94 or something like that. But
Yeah,
this is
something on that order.
97 years old.
And you just don't realize,
You
you
don't
know.
even feel like you're still the 95, don't you?
Yeah. Can't tell that much difference.
Yeah.
But then we just got one mind, you know, and
Yeah.
it changes along with us. So
You went on to Boston, and then what?
from there back to Perry Field, Texas. And aircraft mechanic, what I was studying up there in Boston, is a civilian school. And we was staying in the old post office building in Boston. We were up there when they had Coconut Grove
Is
burning.
that how you got to work on the B-17? Or?
Well, yeah, that was part of it. And they needed gunners. That's what they was short
Okay.
of. And,
Now, for those that's watching, that's the big bubble down under the.
yeah, well,
down
it's just
under-
a ball,
the ball.
under there, and it turns. I've got the whole area underneath that I can see through that deal. I wasn't supposed to be but 5'8" or shorter.
Yeah.
Being 6 feet, it took some.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Work to get in
before we
there.
go to break, I was going to tell him he was so tall that they couldn't have a parachute. Couldn't have a parachute at his height. So he had to get with the supply sergeant, and y'all rigged up something, a parachute.
Yeah, well,
that really safe. Well, we got to go to break before I get to. I was just trying to tell him real quick.
Okay.
So we're gonna talk more about that when we come back from break.
Okay.
Stay where you are. Get a pen. Be right back. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. We're talking with Truman Waters, World War II veterans, 97 years young, and when we were talking about that day, you was in the ball of that B-17. And I remember one part from your book, you know, you couldn't fire upwards. You could
No.
fire out, because if you did, you'd shoot your pilot, right?
Well, you couldn't even get your guns that
Yeah.
high. They wouldn't go. They wouldn't go any higher than just horizontal where you are from
Well,
there
I
down.
guess when you, I'm getting way ahead of the thing, but there was a point where you were attacked by a German aircraft,
Yeah.
and you were firing, but you could only fire so high.
Yeah.
And
That's
he
right.
came up over and then shot downward and killed your pilot and others.
No, well, the pilot wasn't killed. He didn't jump for some reason, and the co-pilot said, "I don't know why he didn't get out." Says he's right behind me.
Did he ride the plane down?
He rode the plane down, and that bugged me for years, but I finally got over it. I think he stayed with the plane because of me, because he's the one that specified that I get in a ball turret. There's three of us, none of us wanted to be in the ball turret, and we went to him for him to decide which one would go in the ball turret. He said, "I don't want that responsibility," but he said something will happen before we get in combat that I'll specify one of you. And the other two guys, I think, is the one that framed me. They're both Catholic, by the way.
Yeah.
And they said, "You know, I understand." This was on the troop train. We was on our way to the East Coast from Kansas at that time. Says, "I understand we're going to be in Kansas City for about 30 minutes. And I overheard them, and I thought, you know, that'd be a good time for me to see a little of the town, 30 minutes. Well, I got back in 30 minutes, but I'd held up the troop train because it was just stopped for a few minutes and was supposed to leave. Well, there I was missing. And that's when the pilot said, "You're the
one.
You're the
Okay.
ball turret guy."
But when the plane was shot down, your parachute did work.
Yeah.
And take me from there. You bailed out.
Well, I'd got this old parachute out of a scrap pile. And it was wet, and so was the harness. And they had brought a bunch of stuff up from Africa. This was in Italy at the time. And the guy in the quartermaster there, he didn't have anything like I needed. He said, "But there's a scrap pile out there. Go through it and see if you find something." Well, that's the way but the chute was wet, and when I bailed out and the pilot chute come out, nice like it's supposed to be. No, there's no water there, but that chute, it just kept folded. And I thought, oh my gosh, I should have had it repacked.
Yeah.
But about that time, it poof, you know.
Yeah.
And I felt like a giant had grabbed me and was going up instead of down.
I want us to land you now. You're on the ground. You're on the side of a hill.
Yeah, and snow was about 8 inches deep.
Really?
And I hit the ground harder than I expected because it was a small chute, a chest type chute. And but I didn't hurt myself. I just jarred myself up. I think that snow helped quite a bit when I landed.
Well, and you landed and you were captured as a prisoner.
Right.
Became a prisoner of Adolf Hitler.
Right.
And where did you go? You went to a camp there at somewhere.
Well, first we went to not Regensburg, that's where we shot down. We went to this area where they process prisoners. And then from there I was shipped up to in East Prussia and stayed there till the Russians started pushing.
Now this is the story I remember from you was on here before, where they put you in old ships down in the hold, whether cargo carriers or something like that.
Yeah, it was an old iron ore vessel or something. It's dirty, you know. And that was when we left East Prussia because the Russians was pushing, and they was about to capture the place. So we were crowded into this ship. And I thought when I walked up to go down in the ship, well, they don't mean for me to go down in there. All these eyes are looking up at me. And that guy with a rifle and the bayonet, loose. And of course I had to go down the ladder. And it was so crowded in there, 48 hours.
So this was their way of hiding the prisoners of war, American prisoners of war, without our American planes seeing them. And just see us. They just saw an old cargo ship.
Well, the reason we was in that ship, they was moving us out pretty fast to another camp that was further into the heart of Germany.
But they weren't looking for prisoners inside those old ships, you know.
Well, that's probably true.
They were looking for camps out in the woods and stuff, I'm sure. But that had to be horrible, standing packed in there like sardines in the heat. You said there's old iron ore in there?
Oh yeah, it was. I took it to be iron ore. It was kind of yellow dirt.
You gotta believe that when somebody moved, that they stirred it up, and you're probably breathing some of it. That
Well, there wasn't much moving going on. We was in there
Yeah.
so tight,
yeah,
and if we need to go to the bathroom, we had to line up for it and go up on deck. And a lot of times, well, the first time that I remember this happening, I heard the guns going off, rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Somebody jumped overboard because they wasn't going back down
Yeah.
that hole anymore.
Did
And that
you-
happened
did-
several times.
Did a lot of them pass away down in the hole?
No, I don't remember anybody passing out, but we were crowded in there and no water, nothing to eat, and for 48 hours. And they finally they dropped a bucket of water down there, about a 10-quart bucket, seemed to be, and we all had Clem cans hanging on our belts, so we'd dip into that,
Yeah.
get a little water, and finally the water'd be gone, and they'd pull it back up. Well, people would put maybe a cigarette or two or something in there,
Yeah.
when they'd pull it back up to get more maybe.
Really?
And then they'd lower it again, but it wouldn't be quite that much water in there.
Did they have? Did you have? How did you finally get released from that? Was you?
Well, they came into port. I don't remember the name of the port where we came to, but we got in there just before sundown, and I thought maybe we'll get off this thing. But they kept us there overnight. I knew when it got dark we wouldn't be there till daylight. And when we got off, they handcuffed us in pairs. And I managed to get to stand by a guy that's about my size. I figured we might have to move fast or something. And I sidled up to him and was my left arm out. I wanted to handcuffed on my left instead
Yeah.
of my right. And he didn't seem to realize what was going on, so
Yeah.
it worked. And we stayed overnight on a box car with the guards in one end of it, and we were in the other. Young guys, a lot of them, well, all of them looked like they was like teenagers.
Well, we run out of time. So when did the Americans you get with Americans?
Well, after we went into the next camp, they were on us by the way, quite a ways, handcuffed. And when we left the next camp, we left walking. And we walked for 650 miles.
Good
It's been determined, a guy that's been interviewing me, he's captain over in Georgia. And he looks up a lot of this stuff and fills me in on
Yeah.
like 650 miles. And,
Well, we've run out of time, and
Yeah.
the book, your book, you've got some. If somebody would like to have one of them, they can contact me, and I'll tell them how to get in touch with you, and you can
Very
get one
good.
to them.
Very
That
good.
tells the rest of the story. We could be here for a 4-hour show and still not cover
Oh,
all
yeah.
the thing.
Well,
But I do appreciate it, and I appreciate your service.
Good.
And we got to go to a break. Come back. We got use that you can use. Stay where you are. Yeah, thanks for staying with us here as we wind up with veterans issues. I appreciate Trimming Waters coming on and doing that. We had another 4-hour show to do. Amazing story. Firefighters Memorial, we're going to dedicate it on September the 11th at a ceremony between the firefighters and law enforcement. It's going to have a ceremony up in Centennial Memorial Park at 11 o'clock on September the 11th. And again, the Alabama Firefighters Memorial will be dedicated that day. Governor Ivey will be there to do the dedication, and Secretary of State John Merrill will be there also, amongst others. If you've got a power chair out there that you're not using, I can use it. I got veterans out there that need them. They're not eligible for them through any kind of a program, but they do need them to go to their mailboxes and things like that. So if you've got one, give me a holler, and I'll put it to use. Superior Hyundai, they're the one that sponsors our show, and one of the sponsors. And Yeah, I'm going to give you a way to make some money, save some money. You go down to buy a new Hyundai, take your DD214 with you, and that'll save you $500 right there, your DD214. Then if you tell them you saw it here on Veterans Issues, they'll save you another $500. So go up and see Mac and George and all the guys up at Superior Hyundai. And by the way, they now have the classic Cadillac place. So if you're some reason you're not in the business for a Hyundai, you probably go up there and get that Cadillac. And I'll tell you, they got some beautiful ones. So keep that in mind. The VA hotline is 855-948-2311. The crisis line, which I had to call last week for someone, is 1-800-273-8255. Press the number 1 when the voice comes on. 1-800-273-8255. You never know when you might have a veteran or someone in need, and that's for anyone. Now, it doesn't have to be a veteran, but that's a crisis hotline. A group here that I always talk about is the Wounded Warrior Alabama. Wounded Warrior Alabama is a website at gmail.com. Wounded Warrior Alabama at gmail.com. Phone number 256-458-2715. Just they've had veterans with power cut off, veterans with water cut off, need a ramp built for a wheelchair, things like that. This group does it. I cannot find another organization I can get help, anything like that. Yesterday I got a call at a 85-year-old veteran. His air conditioner went out. Can you imagine being without an air conditioner this weather? And the first number I gave him to call was this number here. So keep it handy, 256-458-2715. Tell them I told you to call. If you're buying at Lowe's and you're getting your military discount, you want to show your card and that ain't good anymore. You got to go on the website, and you got to go on to lowes.com/military and put your information in. And next time you go in there, all you'll use is your phone number and get your discount. So and this week the salute goes out to all the first responders. We'll see you next week on Veterans Issues. We're gone.